We do apologize for starting the program a little behind schedule. Hello and thanks for joining the Thursday edition of Journalist Hangout. I am Veronica Danik-Boy. Today on the program, suspected herdsmen kill 13 people in Benue village, slaughter 7 farmers in Nasarawa state. U.S. says corruption still very rampant in Nigeria. And later on in the program, Rivers Magnus Abe declares governorship ambition, vows to resist manipulation of APC Congress. I will be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju, Mustafa Ogunshaki and Asukwa James. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
Journalist Hangout starts now. Evil seems to have taken up permanent residency in Benue State. Not a day or week passes by without reports of men, women and defenseless children being slaughtered or gunned down by merciless trigger-happy killer herdsmen who have continued to lay siege to Benue State. So many black days have been recorded and becoming too innumerable to keep count. On Wednesday, suspected armed herdsmen invaded Ali Ogundu and South Council wards of Guma local government area. 16 persons were murdered in those attacks that were reported to have been carried out simultaneously. This occurred barely one day after herdsmen mowed down 19 persons, including 2 Catholic church priests in Gwa East local government area. Sadly, evil also visited Nasarawa state, where 7 farmers were ambushed and shot by herdsmen while they went in search for food. With this height of wanton destruction and needless killings recorded daily, why has President Muhammadu Buhari refused to declare killer herdsmen terrorists? Today, I'll start with you. The Afenifere group, that's the Pan-Yoruba group, said that the president has to relinquish his seat or position as the patron of Miyetti Allah for him to really deal with the situation decisively.
I don't know whether that really is the solution. We have offered suggestions to the president about how to tackle this problem. It's up to the president to do what is right. Because if he does what is right, Nigerians will be happy with him. If he chooses not to do what is right, then the history of Nigeria will not be complete without a mention of what is happening at this time and how the president handled the situation. It is clear now that Nigerians are disappointed about the government's handling of these killings. The people talk extensively about the progress made in the war against terror, and they give this government much more credit than it should get. I'm saying this as someone who has reported and has investigated extensively the war in the Northeast. So much credit given to the government about the fact that killings are not taking place outside of the Northeast. I mean Boko Haram, killings by Boko Haram. But the truth is, there's nothing extraordinary was done to ensure that communities outside of the Northeast are safe. It's just a question of the terrorist group changing its tactics and, in order to survive, limiting its area of influence to a small part of the Northeast. That's just what has happened. And we have seen now, given the powerlessness of our government to defeat these herdsmen, we have seen clearly that the noise about, oh, we've defeated Boko Haram under this government, Boko Haram can no longer attack Kano, Boko Haram can no longer attack Abuja, is all empty gas, as we have seen now. The only way that the government can show that what has happened in terms of restraining Boko Haram from killing people outside of the Northeast, the only way government can show to people that it's no fluke is to ensure that these herdsmen killing people every day are stopped in their tracks. And we've challenged the government. I personally, I said I will not stop talking about this problem until the president and his team put an end to these needless killings, these shameful killings, not only in the northeast, not only in the north central. The killings in Zamfara state are intolerable. We can't continue to read about people being killed in Zamfara state the way they are being killed. And no one can stop the killings in Zamfara. People are not even talking about it as if it's a crime to say that, as if it's a crime to condemn killings in our country. For some people, if you condemn the killings in Zamfara and you talk about it, they will think you don't like President Buhari.
All right.
How dumb can people behave? It cannot be out of hatred. It's just that we cannot continue to watch our brothers and sisters being killed like fowls. The killings in Zamfara have to stop. The killings in Benue, in the Benue Valley, have to stop. And when you don't stop terrorists,
they keep spreading.
They keep spreading. You see, initially these killings in Benue were limited to Logo and Guma. But we are seeing them coming to Gwe West, Gwe East. South. And once they come to Gwe West and Gwe East, they are coming to Makurdi. Because it's not far. They are coming to Makurdi. When will this killing stop? I'm happy the National Assembly, they are beginning to behave like people truly elected to serve the cause of the Nigerian people. They too are talking about these killings every day, the way we are talking about it here. And we are saying that we will not stop talking about it. If anyone thinks that every day we'll come here and just talk about what is happening in the stock market and other, or Real Madrid beating Bayern Munich, no. When they are killing people in our country, we will talk about it.
All right, now let's bring Mustafa into this discussion now. Are we really taking responsibility of our problems? The presidency has blamed the attacks on abnormal and unnatural headers. And we have also seen a situation where we as a country have helped other African countries deal with their security challenge and even political challenge. But why are we not handling our case the way we should?
That's rather sad. That's a question I don't have an answer to, honestly. Because there's nothing that ought to be said that we have not said on this program concerning these killings. A couple of weeks back, about 2 weeks ago, we were still discussing these same issues. And I remembered I said that I asked the question whether the president has a will to deal with this harassment. Mr. President knows what is happening. I still insist.
And does he have the will?
Obviously, with what we are still saying, it seems to me that he doesn't have the will. And sadly, I would rather say that he should resign if he knows that he cannot handle this matter. If in good conscience the president knows that he cannot handle this issue, then he doesn't have any business being in office. And it's getting gradually to a situation where Nigerian people will have to appeal to the conscience of the world. This is crimes against humanity. The whole world knows that. And it is getting to that extent that Nigerians will write to the International Criminal Court about the crime against humanity that is going on under this administration.
That's what Emir of Anka said now, that he will have to write to the AU. Because they can't stop people being killed in Zamfara.
With all respect, I said here that Mr. President is the head, is a leader of this Herdsmen Association. He has represented them over a period of time. When people were being killed in the south, in the northeast, Mr. President cried out that northerners were being killed. Even when the soldiers, the Nigerian soldiers were dealing with the insurgents in that area, he cried out as a candidate. Now, he's there. Let me tell you how the Fulani people, how they spread, how they behave. They behave like a cult. If they want reprisal attacks somewhere, they will call people from outside to come and carry out, you know how these university courts behave. That's exactly the way they do. So General Abacha said something, no matter what you can say, he said that any insurgency that lost more than a week He said he has a hand of government in it.
It's a lie.
This government, I don't know whether it's a lie or
insurgency
not.
lasted 25 years in Sri Lanka. Abacha didn't know what he was saying. Abacha was good at stealing, not at...
as far as I'm concerned, this matter, part of the constitutional responsibility of any government is security of the people.
Of course.
And if we are now crying every day, every night, and this is still happening, it's not enough for Mr. President to say that he's condemning it. People should
go
act.
beyond condemning.
People should act. Or Nigerians will take their case to the International Criminal Court.
All right. Now, the Senate has said that a state of emergency should be declared in Benue State, and that will stop or drive out the perpetrators of these wanton killings, would it?
Well, yeah. If it declares a state of emergency, it will, because that is when the troops, the army, everybody they'll concentrate more on trying to nip the crisis in the bud. But what happens to Zamfara? What will happen to Nasarawa? Because they are spreading. If it were to be just 2 local government areas that this was happening, maybe the police would have, find a solution to it. But now that it has generated and it has spread to other states, what will happen? Will it also declare a state of emergency in Zamfara? Because just like Jide says, the thing is terrible in Zamfara. Every day they are also killing in Zamfara, but we don't. But it's because it's not being reported.
No, those ones are. It's being reported.
In Benue, it is like everything every day. It's like a norm now. I remember when Boko Haram bombings and killings used to come. Yeah, people say, so this thing can happen in Nigeria, and it happened. Then before you know it, it now became like a normal thing, like a culture. Okay, 3 people dead, bomb blast somewhere there.
When 20 people die, we
don't even shed tears anymore because it's like normal thing. Then the government, then and now, all they need to do is to remove a particular paragraph and just add maybe the local government and say, okay, they condemn. We need more than condemnation. Thank God that the Senate is now coming up. The National Assembly is now taking that responsibility. They are speaking out. They shouldn't just sit down every day they go there. Some of them will sleep. No, we don't want them sleeping. They have to open their eyes before the crisis gets to their doorsteps.
Some of the best sleepers in that Senate are even from the North Central.
The North Central.
They can sleep for Nigeria.
So I don't know. So now, right now, the state of emergency will definitely be a good option. But what happens to Zamfara? And that is where either the police, I don't know even what happened to the Operation Cat Race. Because Zamfara, Nasarawa, Plateau, and Benue was part of the operation. So what happened? Why did they stop it? Why did they use like a withdrawal?
You can successfully carry out those operations if you have enough troops.
But we don't have.
That is the point that many Nigerians have sent soldiers. How many soldiers
but we don't even have. Because right now we are still carrying out a major war with Boko Haram in the Northeast.
Do you remember that Nigeria had to withdraw its troops in Mali?
Yes, exactly.
And we sent them to the Northeast because of Boko Haram. We don't have enough soldiers. That is a fact. And what we can do, in my view, to defeat all these herdsmen and the rest of them, is to equip the police. Let's focus more on the police. Equip the police. When Ambode took over here in Lagos, criminals were running riot. In traffic, people were being robbed. What did he do? He provided what the police needed.
Security gadgets.
And at every point you see a police vehicle. That served as a deterrent. And when one guy who snatched a bag in traffic was shot dead, those boys knew that things had changed. So if we provide enough equipment for the police, they will deliver. And if we fund the police effectively, there is what we call the Georgia police reform. Georgia is a state that evolved out of the whole Soviet Union. The Rwandans have copied the Georgian police reform. They've implemented it. They are now in the last phase. Today in Africa, Rwanda has the best and most efficient policing system. What do we have in Nigeria? We can't copy Georgia. We can't even copy Togo beside us. In Nigeria, an area commander, at least I know in Lagos here, an area commander who is on 23,000 naira a quarter. And he has 5 patrol vehicles.
And he has to
He will fuel them all. He will buy stationery. And we want to effectively fight crime. This is not fiction. Let people go and find it. 23,000 naira a quarter paid to area commander. That's his impressed for a quarter. Have we not turned ourselves to a joke? And you want the police to be effective? If you see the way if policemen are being slaughtered like ram by these herdsmen,
yeah.
you will know that they've declared war on Nigeria.
Exactly.
So we need to immediately begin to recruit into the police, because for a long time we didn't do any recruitment. For like 5 years on the bounce, no recruitment at all. And people are dying, policemen are being killed, policemen are retiring. We didn't recruit. We don't have enough policemen, we don't have enough soldiers. And we want to defeat criminals whose numbers are growing every day. It can't happen. There's no miracle.
Can we recruit?
We can call to God. We can be begging God every day.
Can we recruit
about
when
this,
they are
but we will
not
not achieve
funded?
our aim.
Can we recruit when they are not being properly funded?
It has to start. It has to start. The process has to start with recruiting. Recruit more men into the police, more men and women into the police. Increase the funding of the police. There's a bill before the National Assembly now that should help us solve the problem of poor funding for the police. Do that. Equip them with the equipment that they need. Give them the equipment that they need. Surveillance aircraft, sophisticated equipment, APC. You heard what happened in Offa.
Yeah.
Not one APC to patrol the town.
Exactly.
So how does police don't even have, sometimes their vehicles are rickety and you want them to rapidly respond to distress calls. It won't happen. You can be praying in church till kingdom come. These solutions have to be practical.
It boils down to political will, Mustafa.
Honestly, it's still the same thing. And if you see, ask me, even with what we have on ground, it could still be efficiently used, you know, if the political will is there. I'll give you an example of what I mean. There was a time there was a crisis in Ife between indigenes and the Fulani people there, and the Hausa Fulani people there. What did the federal government do? The following day, the Minister of Internal Affairs was in Ife and Oshobo. It was responded to immediately. Why are we not seeing the same response in other parts of the country? Why are we not seeing it in Nasarawa? Why are we not seeing it in Benue? Why are we not seeing it in other places?
All right, quickly, we have Ali calling from Abuja on the line. Are you there? Go ahead with your contribution.
Interior.
Is that?
It was quiet.
Good evening, Veronica.
Good evening.
Baba.
Good evening.
I want to say you are doing very wonderful work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
God is using you to speak to our president, and those surrounding him may not know that you are doing him well. What happened in Offa? Where did they get the police from? And in just less than how many hours, police show themselves as very capable.
Yes.
And by the grace of God, we have been able to make some arrests.
Yes.
I think the president, those surrounding him are giving.
Ali, are you there?
I'm still there. I'm still there.
Welcome.
The people around here are giving it false hope that no matter what happens, you're going to win the election. Apart from Zamfara people, Taraba people, Benue people, even those on the southwest are losing confidence in the president if you don't know that. And he must take what you people are saying very serious and take a decisive action. If not, he's living in a false hope by the people surrounding him, thinking that everything will go in for him. People's sympathy of people are going away from him because of these things that are happening. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ali, for your contribution.
Exactly. Just like you're saying something about the Senate, just like Senator Solomon said, we need fresh ideas. New, fresh ideas for us to tackle these killings. Is either the sack, in fact,
Beyond ranching.
in fact, the service chiefs, what are they still doing?
Yeah, they called
today they even
a vote of
summoned
no confidence.
Today they even summoned the IG. It was nowhere to be found. You know, so these are some of the infractions that the president needs to deal with. And that is where the political will comes in. But once we know that there's an issue, the president shouldn't be every time crying, why do you have these men there? You selected these people for them to do a job. And if they don't do it, sack. No point keeping them.
You see, the point also is, beyond that, the level of challenges that we are facing now, beyond even just sacking those service chiefs, we need to look at our troop strength. Honestly, if we retain the same number of soldiers that we have, because in the past, we didn't have this kind of challenges, so we didn't think that we will need to put soldiers here and there. And Babangida was the one who reduced the number of Nigerian soldiers. Yeah, exactly. He said, you don't need a large army in peacetime. But peacetime has evaporated. So we are now in war, at war with ourselves within our country. And a lot of these people are not even Nigerians. If you see the size of some of these places, even if you put 50,000 soldiers in some places, they may not be able to overwhelm these guys. We saw it with Boko Haram. We had to bring in Chadian troops. The big gains that we recorded before the election, when we recovered those towns from Boko Haram, all the big towns from Boko Haram, we recovered them before the election, not after Buhari took over. It was made possible because we asked for help, direct help. Chadian troops came here. And Chadian troops in this sub-region, they are the most tested. Even when they went to Mali, they did excellently well. They are fantastic at desert warfare. And they did a marvelous job. They lost a lot of their fighters, but they helped us. Where we are now,
should we be asking for help?
If we need help, if we cannot overwhelm these guys and we need help, either in form of, it might not even be in form of boots on ground, but at least intelligence, the equipment that we need to track people, because those mercenaries that came from South Africa, they brought their own radar, through which they could spot Boko Haram movement, and they were able to deal decisively with Boko Haram within a short time. So we need to holistically look at the entire Nigerian security architecture has failed. We need to look at everything together and tell ourselves, like, how many troops do we need at this time? How many soldiers do we need? How many Air Force personnel do we need? How many policemen do we need? We have to begin to do that now. Otherwise, you will find that they will remove troops from this place, take them to another place. Once you remove them, those guys will come back.
All right, still ahead on the program, United States says corruption still very rampant in Nigeria. Stay with us for details. All right, we move on now. Nigeria's slow steps towards eliminating corruption is steadily not leading anywhere. For decades, the country has wallowed in massive corruption. But when President Muhammadu Buhari hinged his 2015 election campaign on bringing graft to its knees, many were genuinely optimistic enough to give him their votes. Well, the president made some inroads as the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has been able to recover some looted funds and carried out prosecution, albeit some were media trials that achieved next to nothing. Recently, a report by the United States dug large holes in President Buhari's anti-corruption campaign. According to the 48-page document, impunity remains the order of the day in Nigeria. It indicted Buhari's administration for lack of transparency and failure to prosecute government officials accused of impunity. The report also cited the Shiite issue, IPOB extrajudicial killings, and Dasuki's detention as rights abuses and violations of rule of law. What do we make of this report, gentlemen? Now, do you agree, or were you surprised by this report, Chidi?
No, I'm not surprised, because...
so you agree in total with the details of the report?
No, I do not agree totally. You asked me whether I was surprised.
No, you're not surprised.
I'm
and
not
then
surprised.
you do not agree.
No, I do not agree totally. Some of what they said, they are right. Because the truth is, when we talk about corruption in our country, people think that corruption should be fought only at federal level. Even if you fight corruption at federal level, Buhari is able to jail everybody at federal level, we will still not defeat corruption. Because corruption is happening at state level, it's happening at local government level. But nobody is talking about
Even
that.
in the private sector.
You know, every sector, judiciary, everywhere, there's corruption. Corruption is fast becoming like second skin to Nigerians. So the truth is, no matter the efforts that government will make at this time, it is too early for us to begin to see those concrete signs. Those concrete signs will begin to see them when even the affairs of government become much more transparent than they are now.
But would you say that the effort the government has made has been effective?
The efforts that this government has made are commendable, but not necessarily effective. For example, BVN has not stopped people from stealing. TSA has not stopped people from stealing. In fact, people are bypassing TSA. We have a report of NNPC bypassing TSA, putting money in a private account. We have that. So those TSA, BVN, they can't necessarily on their own defeat corruption until we purge our hearts of the desire to steal. Honestly, we can't defeat corruption. And I said before, I will repeat it, that the first step to defeating institutional corruption in our country is to start from the civil service. You must start from the civil service. A lot of those big houses you see in Abuja are owned by civil servants. Some of them even on level 10, they have those houses. Remember the case of the civil servant with 86 cars? Or have we forgotten? Because in Nigeria, we forget those things very easily. You know? So you must start the reform from the civil service, purge the civil service of the bad eggs, make it difficult for people to be able to steal. That is what other countries have done. If you look at in the real sense of the word, some countries have defeated corruption, but they've not been able to stop stealing. That's why I always say there's a distinction between corruption and stealing. Because within some of those Scandinavian countries, for example, what you need, they provide. Education for your kids, housing, they provide. But your tax will be high. Then, tax evasion, they will treat you like a common criminal. In some countries in Europe, the punishment for tax evasion is higher than that of manslaughter. So you get the point. And they have also come up with institutions. They put systems in place that ensure that it's extremely difficult for you to get away with corruption. So having done that, you will see that they are on the right track to defeating corruption outright, because you know that you won't escape, so you don't do it. That's what I talked about Netherlands, having to take prisoners from Spain. Because their own prisons are empty. Look at Norway. Prisons in Norway, some prisons in Norway are like 5-star hotels. Where the prisoner even has his own golf course and a lounge, swimming pool. You can only do that if the number of prisoners are very few.
Okay.
So, and we can get there if we try to find out how do these people do these things. It is not simply by arresting people that the FCC does and taking people to court. That's not how to defeat corruption. You must defeat corruption with strong institutions. Those strong institutions will make it clear that, look, if you do this, this is what you get.
All right. But then, Mustafa, haven't we given room for corruption to thrive in the country, especially with the economic situation? Because he talks about countries providing what you need, especially with having the right institutions.
I was going to say exactly that. You see, the greatest killer of darkness is light. When light comes, darkness automatically fades away. It is just like, light is like putting institutional structures on ground that will checkmate any corruption. If there is anything this government have done, particularly in the early days when the president came in, everybody was scared. So people sort of withdrew. You know, everybody, they don't know what is going to happen to them. So all the civil servants, the politicians, but the moment they realized that the president cannot even do something about his own staff, everybody came back. And I will still continue to say one thing. There's a difference between probing election campaign funds and fighting corruption. They are not the same thing. Most of the things this government have done so far, apart from the president whose integrity, in fairness to him, cannot be questioned, because I've never heard his name mentioned anywhere that is involved in anything that somebody, that he sent somebody or that his wife sent somebody. I've not heard that.
Never.
So his integrity is still intact. But they are capitalizing on his weakness, his inability to deal with the people that are corrupt, that are surrounding him. That is one thing. It is just not enough to say you are putting Dasuki in detention because of some security rules and others. You know, yes, it's good, but fighting corruption demands openness. The question we should ask ourselves is there openness in this government? Can I, as a journalist, go to any ministry and say, I want so-so reports? Is it possible? What is the
expenditure of a ministry?
Even what is the perception of this government to the media? We are running a closed government that you cannot even ask questions. People outside are scared to ask questions. You don't fight corruption in circumstances like that. Now, before this administration, there are some parastatals of government, particularly in the federal government, that they have their own special funds and other something that runs into billions of naira. And they are using it to intervene one way or the other in their respective something. I keep on asking myself, where are these funds today? And from investigations, one finds out that most of these monies are being cleared even before Mr. President invited his ministers to join him. The civil servants has cleared the ground that you cannot even trace those funds anymore. So, I think, like Jide said, putting institutional structures on ground that will fight corruption is the best way, not all these. Corruption is beyond.
No court cases.
No, court cases. I mean, if you hire a son, you know how it is now. You know how our people are. It's a two-way sword. So, the most important thing for me is to put those structures on ground to be able to move forward.
Well, we have government agencies like EFCC, which was rightly put out, EFCC, ICPC, empowering...
EFCC, please, EFCC. As far as I'm concerned, the way they even carry out their house is still a problem. I've said it on here several times. You don't just arrest people based on petitions. You investigate. You do your investigations surreptitiously. There's nobody that will even know. Even the person you are investigating will not even know.
No, that he's been investigated.
That is being investigated. It is when you get a correct something that you can come out to say, we are prosecuting so person. But what do we have here? The first opportunity, EFCC runs to the media. Rather than even going to court, they don't go to court, they go to the media. Destroy their own evidences in the media. Things that will have strengthened their own cases, they will have thrown into the open. And you have given lawyers, the defense lawyers, opportunity to rattle you to any extent.
Quickly, Asuko, like the report says, still talking about the EFCC, that it does not observe due process leading to partisan motivation. But then, have we really empowered the EFCC to at least stand on its own to carry out what it's supposed to do as an agency?
So the EFCC, they have their own laws. The thing is, the Constitution overrides every other law. And so if, for instance, they say, okay, you assume that somebody has stolen, and then the court tells you, okay, free this particular person, because that is what the EFCC has been doing. They just flagrantly disobey court orders. Then it means the EFCC itself will not be strong. People will not even take the EFCC seriously. They have their own laws. The EFCC can function properly if they know what they are doing. Most of the cases, from a layman perspective, if you sit down, you know that, okay, fine, if they go this way, because lawyers, they are chess players. They know how to play chess very well. They know that once you move this way, they move this way. And if you're outside, you know that if the EFCC, they are able to have a good lawyer, they will win cases. Sometimes they just go to the courts, not even being prepared. I know of several cases that they go to the court and the judge will say, you don't even know what you're doing.
In order to aid the EFCC, so Lagos State Judiciary, I said it here,
it should be.
They set up a special corruption court to attend to their cases. And I'm telling you now, in most cases, it is EFCC investigators and their lawyers that come to court to bungle their own cases. By not going on, there are judges that have complained.
Too.
Yes. They complain about this.
When we have ICPC, we have EFCC, why are we still having issues with corruption? You know? And like you are saying, even in from the federal to the state to the local government, the issues of corruption, we can't even end it. If we start today, just like the Benue killings, you know? Because even in the budget, like we are discussing in the newsroom, the budget itself, this budget,
that's painting a big, every year,
every year
a bleak picture.
Yes, because every year they tell you they will buy cutleries. Is it that these golden cutleries next year, last year, maybe they will still budget money for cutleries, budget for furniture, budget for so many things. You know, and it's
just photo start of the previous budget.
Okay, they will just bring it so that they will just allocate money.
All right, we need to briefly take a break and return to talk more. Stay with us. All right, let's move on now. One man that has declared his intention to unseat incumbent Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike at the 2019 general election is Rivers South Senator Magnus Abe. This would be a tough one for Abe, who only joined the Senate in 2016, but he is preparing for the fight of his life. On Wednesday, Abe declared his bid to contest on the platform of the All Progressives Congress, that's the APC. This means within his party, he will battle Rotimi Amechi's man, Dakuku Peter's side, and should he take the party ticket, he would face Governor Wike. He says his mission is to bring change to the governance of the state, but he has already alleged plots by the state APC leaders to manipulate the outcome of the forthcoming Congress through undue threats and fraud. I'll start with you, Mustafa. Well, how tough is this going to be for Magnus Abe?
I think it's going to be very tough because the politics in South is very interesting. And it interests you to know that in the past...
Not South, Rivers.
Rivers State, particularly.
It's interesting. They allocate votes. They don't, it's not as if the votes of the people that are even there count. Violence is the, I think Wike understands because he has been an integral part of both Amechi, Dakuku, and Magnus Abe. They are all the same. They are friends that things just scatter between them. It's like the case of Ekiti, where you talk about Fayemi, you talk about Oni, Shegoni, you talk about Ojudu, you call Bamdele, they are all the same.
They know each other so well.
Intricately so woven together. It is power that's now separating them. The same thing is what is happening in Rivers. So they know their own secrets very well, and that makes it much, much worse for all of them together. Because they know their secrets, and they know where they're strong, they know where they are weak. And I want to see how it's going to play out. But what my own advice is just, they should mind the people so that the violence will not be too much the way they are going.
Oh, he foresees violence, should it?
Certainly, yes. Absolutely.
It's almost unthinkable to imagine the election will take place in Rivers without violence, because they have a very good population of militants, and election time is boom time for militants and other merchants of violence.
Can Magnus Abe wade this murky water?
I don't see him winning the election. I don't even see APC winning Rivers. I don't see how it can happen, except the election is rigged. Because one, Wike is on ground. He's a street boy. He was chairman of Obiakpo local government, which is the local government that has the highest potential votes. You know, and that's the heartbeat of the Ikwere land. It's the heart of Ikwere land. And the Ikweres are in the majority. They have more local government than other ethnic nationalities. He was saying, one of his supporters was saying something to the effect that the Ikweres will vote for Ogonis because Ogonis voted for Ikwere. That's not when their own son is on the ballot. With their son on the ballot, and with their son being an incumbent, it's a long shot to imagine that the Ikweres will go and vote for Ogoni. I don't see that happening. And even when you look at Wike, he may have attitudes of a roughneck, but he has worked in that state. I've been to Rivers and I've seen good roads that Wike constructed. So he's on ground. The PDP remains strong in that state, and the APC is also divided in the state, because one of the regrets that I have personally is that Rotimi Amechi and Magnus Abe have eventually now fallen apart, all because of this governorship thing. Because Magnus expected Rotimi to support him to become governor in the last election, but Rotimi went for Dakuku, Peter side, and Magnus has come out early now to say, look, I want to contest. But he is already imagining that the congresses will be rigged. That's why he's saying that this time around, nobody should conduct congresses inside an hotel room and all that. So he said this time around, that should not happen. I think that they know themselves very well. He is anticipating what is likely to happen. That, look, in that place it's usually not just fight of the battle of the fittest, but usually a winner takes all affair in Rivers State. So it's going to be an interesting contest. It's going to be an interesting contest.
Azuko, he said he has consulted God, he has talked to different persons, but then what are the bottlenecks that you envisage for him?
The major bottleneck you will have will be Rotimi Amechi, even though they've been friends for a very long time.
SSG now.
SSG. It was when Rotimi was the speaker, he was the minority leader. It was, in fact, I remember in 2014, when Joseph Mbu was, trying to, cause problem everywhere in Rivers. He was shot at, at a rally. And it was because he was moving from PDP to APC, where, they were all along with Rotimi Amechi. So for them to even, come to this particular, cause is very, very sad. In fact, APC in the South-South, the entire South-South, they are not always united. If you talk about Kwaibom, they have the same problem. If you talk of Delta, the same problem. If you talk Rivers, is even worse now.
Even it's not what was Sokoto.
Because,
there is a faction called Buhari SAC in Sokoto now, led by Professor Bashar. So the APC has factions all over the place. Everywhere. And I don't know how the reconciliation committee...
He tried to come up with a reconciliation committee.
When it comes to Rivers, I'm not sure they will be able to sort Rivers out.
Not even the reconciliation in the APC. The reconciliation is not from the bottom of their hearts. People have made up their minds to not forgive one another. You can't reconcile them. I said it here that nobody can reconcile Ganduje and Kwankwaso. And not long after that, Kwankwaso himself came out to say no, that they can't be reconciled. And the governor too granted an interview where he talked about why they fell apart and all that. So reconciliation is only people who genuinely want to forget the past that you can reconcile. People who have made up their minds that, look, you have offended me, I won't forgive you. You can't reconcile them.
Exactly. Most of the contestants in Ekiti are not on speaking terms.
Yes. I know two contestants in that Ekiti that the last time they spoke to one another was 3 years ago.
So you begin to wonder, where's the reconciliation coming from?
So in Rivers, it's just the same thing. Amechi cannot call Magnus Abe to talk to him. And then, Wike is really doing well now. And is really, really on ground. Because if you are in Abuja and you want to go and win an election in your state, you don't have people, you don't have supporters.
He has thugs, he has everything.
He has everything. Structures, thugs, everything that you want.
If you are chairman of Obiakpo local government, all the roughnecks, all the motor boys, you will know them now.
You know them. You know them. And apart from his voice, that is
a husky. Even that voice is enough to scare you, to make you go and hide under your bed.
This one is not about upland. Upland.
It's not pillow voice.
It's not about that one. Maybe that is what Amici is trying to. Why he's trying to support Dakuku, because Dakuku.
But if he supported Dakuku the first time. If he supported Dakuku the first time, Dakuku failed. Why should he? I think Dakuku is Calabar also.
He just speaking side.
If he supported him the first time and he failed, is he the only person who can do it? In terms of what he even mustered before the election, he didn't really muster strong effort.
In fact, so many people then thought Magnus Abe would have given Wike a tough fight.
Yes.
Then.
So possibly he would do that this time around?
We don't know. He had been in the Senate and all that. He was chairman of Petroleum.
And they've been together, just like you are saying. They've all been together. So he knows the tricks. He knows...
Even in government, he has greater experience.
Because he's positive that this is a chance he has to take over the city. He's positive.
Well, it depends.
What's the name of this former governor of that place, Dr. Odili? Yeah. They are all boys of Dr. Odili.
Yeah, but they've fallen apart. I remember Amechi's wedding. Amechi's wedding, he wedded after he became speaker. Yeah. Remember, inside government house at that time, Odili literally organized that wedding for him. And I remember it was even Mumaji that played at the wedding. So that was when the going was good. He was a staff of Odili now. He was working for Odili's hospital. But today now, they don't see eye to eye. It's the nature of politics. Politics splits brothers. So.
All right, on a final note, quickly, gentlemen, what are your takes on a final note, quickly, for today?
Well, I would say that APC should watch it. They should watch it. I don't see how they're going to go into next election without imploding.
Then the government should find a lasting solution to the Benue killings. It's getting too much, and Nigerians might not be very patient when it comes to kicking the government out. So they have to look at it. The elections might be some months back, but so many people are really sensitizing to go and get their PVC because of all these killings.
All right, Chidi.
Yes, I want Mr. President to do his best to end these killings. I want the security forces to give their best for Nigeria. The killings have to stop. It's a national shame. I'm ashamed as a Nigerian that people are being slaughtered like rams. And this has to stop. And if it doesn't stop, we'll continue to talk about it until we see clear signs that government has decisively dealt with the situation, that is when we will stop talking about it.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for coming on the program. And that's all on Journalist Hangout. Join us tomorrow for another interesting episode of the program. Watch the repeat broadcast tonight at 11. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on other platforms showing on the screen and on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Veronica Danik Boy. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.